What's up, James? Welcome to the Low Carb Hustle podcast. I'm so glad you're here today, man.
Thank you for having me, Nate.
So for anyone who's not familiar with you, your work, or your book, Clear, that's coming out pretty soon, just can you give us a little bit of background on who you are and, what's like, why this topic especially is so important to you?
Yeah, well, I'm an Australian American, grew up in Australia in a pretty big drinking culture where alcohol is pretty much normalized. And then I was a journalist for the first part of my life, a newspaper journalist. And then I moved over to the US as a early 30 something and drank the way that, excuse me, nature or society, I should say, really inspired me to drink, which is, had a couple drinks most nights of the week and drank considerably more on weekends. Wasn't an alcoholic, but, I realized that my drinking habits had really caught up with me over 20 years of drinking. And then in my mid-30s, age 35, I managed to stop drinking alcohol. I'm 49 years old now. I haven't drunk since 2010, so 15 years.
Congratulations.
And
That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. And, I feel amazing. And now today I consider myself an entrepreneur. I have this organization called Alcohol Free Lifestyle, and we help mostly executives and business owners and high achievers to rewire their mindset around alcohol and live an alcohol-free lifestyle so they can generate clarity, focused energy, be successful in business, save a marriage, reverse health complications. In addition to a couple other businesses I've got. I guess I'm a serial entrepreneur, but really my mission now today is helping high achievers to break free from alcohol.
So I feel like that's kind of an uphill battle in a lot of ways because there's so many high achievers that I talk to in my business and coaching, et cetera, that believe alcohol is a part of their social and business identity. How do you get someone to separate success from drinking?
Well, the reason why people associate success with drinking is because of cultural conditioning, because that's the way it's always been, because it gets reinforced in Super Bowl commercials where people are having a good time drinking alcohol, where you look at billboards on Sunset Boulevard and you see George Clooney riding a motorcycle with a black leather jacket promoting his tequila brand. And so this conditioning gets reinforced all the time that drinking alcohol is cool, desirable, needed, necessary for business networking and connection to create bonds. And the idea of not drinking means you're an alcoholic or you got a problem or you're dull and you're boring. And what I suggest and what I submit is the opposite, that alcohol is nothing more than attractively packaged poison, that we don't need this attractively packaged poison to do a business deal, to entertain clients, to relax, to celebrate, to commiserate. In actual fact, we can choose to live an alcohol-free lifestyle and be even more effective in our business networking and in our relationships with our health and our focus and our enjoyment. So I'm not here to hypnotize your listeners into thinking that alcohol is attractively packaged poison. I'm here to de-hypnotize them from believing that it's actually cool and necessary. And, like you said, it can be a challenging process, but once your eyes are opened and you can just see the insidious conditioning in culture about this glorification of alcohol, it's very hard to close your eyes.
A couple thoughts on that. Number one is if I was going to let anyone hypnotize me, it'd be you because that voice, very sultry. I'm into it.
Thanks,
Nate.
Nate.
Number two, I think there's the idea of cultural conditioning doesn't just exist around alcohol. I feel like there's a lot of things that we are conditioned to think that are completely normal. And this is just how life is. So how do we start challenging those perspectives, both in alcohol and these other pieces of our lifestyle where we're just like, I guess it's normal to sit down after work and watch Netflix for 3 hours. How do we take just change our perspective, take a step back and actually analyze these things with clarity versus just accepting that this is average, this is normal? Yeah. I just put out a reel today. That was average is $32,000 in debt. 21 pounds overweight, less than $1,000 in savings. I've never visited another country. So talking about that. So how do we challenge this perspective of this is average, this is normal?
Well, let me go back to your childhood, not yours specifically, Nate, but your listeners. Okay.
We can, we can
Yeah.
go there. I'll cry today. I don't care.
So here's the thing, right? If we go back to our childhood, we remember our parents saying, "Oh, no, no, little Nate, you can't drink now. You can drink when you're older." You probably saw your parents drinking, adults drinking around you, no matter what your circumstances were. And when your parents said, "Oh, no, no, little Nate, you can drink when you're older," what they did was they implanted this idea in your head that one day you get to drink. One day you get to consume this poison. It's a rite of passage. And
Mm.
that's where it begins. That's where it begins. And then it gets perpetuated as we get into our teens and we start going to little parties and we're 15 and now we're drinking. And then all these smiling assassins are everywhere. And the definition of a smiling assassin is a friend or a colleague or a waiter or a waitress who are smiling as they offer you a drink. "Hey, Nate, can I get you a drink? Hey, Nate, let's have a couple drinks. Hey, let's go catch up with the boys and watch the game. We'll have a couple drinks." And we're smiling as we're extending this invitation. And we're smiling as we consume this poison. And we're laughing and giggling and remembering with a big smile on our face the drunken exploits from the night before. And so it perpetuates this idea that consuming this substance is pleasurable and fun. The reality, as you said, is 75% of America is overweight and obese. Average debt is, what did you say it was? 20, 30,000?
32 something, 32.8.
Yeah. And I'm not saying it's solely alcohol's fault, but let me just give you some facts here. Alcohol is poison. It's just toxins, okay? Now, it compromises your sleep. It gives you a fatty liver. It dehydrates your skin. It leaves you feeling irritable. It leads to feelings of frustration. It leads to doing things that you don't want to do. And by the way, I'm not talking about an alcoholic here. I'm talking about you, the listener, listening to me right now, who drinks a couple of drinks each night and thinks that that's okay. I'm not talking about if you're an alcoholic and you're getting a DUI and you're rock bottom and you're going into rehab. You might be listening, and that may be you, in which case I am talking to you. But I would submit that most of your listeners, Nate, probably try to do moderation. They probably would prefer to not drink, but they still do. Okay. The consequences of that modest amount of drinking is the destruction of white and gray matter in your brain, an increased likelihood of cancer, unwanted body fat. Like I said before, poor sleep and dehydrated skin, marital strain, a feeling of kind of drifting and malaise. All of these things are consequences of the alcohol. And yet we're walking around with these smiles on our faces as we drink this unwanted body fat, when we drink this marital strain. Because make no mistake, when you go into a restaurant and the waiter and the waitress comes over and says, "Oh, hello, Nate. Hello, ma'am. Nice to meet you. Welcome. Can I get you started with a glass of wine? Can I get you started with some drinks?" What they're effectively saying is, "Can I get you a glass of disrupted sleep? Would you like a glass of regret? Would you like a couple of bottles of shame? Would you like a glass of increased blood pressure?" That's exactly what they're inviting us to participate in. So, to answer your question, I'm hoping now that this is kind of rewiring the mindset of your listeners around alcohol's place in their life. It started with your parents or the adults in your life, it continued in college where everyone's smiling, and it's continuing with society, all smiling and joking around as they consume that alcohol.
I want to talk more about the poison aspect here in a second. I feel like that's really interesting, and like, we hit him with the facts as well. But how can we as parents? I got a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old at home. How can, like, maybe you got younger kids, maybe you got teenagers. How can we talk about alcohol in a way that doesn't put it on this pedestal and like display it as a rite of passage for our kids? How can we do better?
Well, let me give you the best scenario, or the preferred scenario, is just to not consume alcohol at all. And hopefully,
They're still going to see it. They're still going to have like other adults. They're going to go to parties. People are going to be drinking. How do we say, like you said, oh, you can't drink that now, not till you're older. How do we speak about it in a way that is more conducive to giving them the choice and showcasing like the full picture?
Well, we don't. I would submit we don't plant the idea in their head that they can drink it when they're older. We just educate them now that, oh no, that's nasty. That's nasty stuff. And you know what? I've been doing that with my godson for about the last 4 years, and he's 11, about to be 12. He sees people drinking, and he looks at me with this perplexed look on his face, and kind of like screws up his face and goes, "Oh, what are they drinking that for?" Because I've kind of brainwashed him enough to understand that, right? Now, let's see how it plays out. Let's see if he gets to 15 or 16 and he wants to drink. But certainly, from what I've observed from the age of 6 to 11, he hates alcohol. His perception of alcohol is like, oh, that's nasty. Oh, that's terrible. So that's my strategy. Let's see how it plays out over time. I would submit experiment with that if you're listening. First step, most preferred step is don't have it in the house, don't consume it yourself. And I'll talk into that as we go along here as to why that's important. But if you are going to drink it, or you're exposing your children to seeing it, it's just a very friendly, educational type conversation. Alcohol is something that some adults choose to do, but it's nasty and it has these consequences. We wouldn't want to do that, would we? And then just, having those kind of conversations, I think would be a good first step.
All right. Something to keep in mind for sure. Have you heard the idea that like alcohol is obviously like hard alcohol is called spirits, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some people postulate that it's called spirits because it opens you up to evil entities or different types of spiritual like forces.
Yes.
Have you any thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's an Arabic word. Alcohol comes from the Arabic word al-kuhul, which means body-eating spirit. I've seen that published a lot all over the internet. They have these kind of like memes that get sent out. And I've investigated that and gone into it. I can't find absolute confirmation of that, but it makes sense. I mean, it makes sense to me based on my 10 years of researching the consequences of alcohol, that when indeed you consume this toxin, it actually does activate the spirit inside of you, or spirits, let's call them undesirable spirits, start to take a hold of you. And of course, that shows up in terms of when we drink too much of it, we do things that we don't want to do, right? So it makes sense. And certainly from my research going all the way back thousands of years, it was used as a numbing agent. Right? It was used to treat wounds. It was used to try to numb the pain and dull the pain. And guess what? 2025, we're still doing that. It's just now our pain is our emotional pain. Now it's like heartbreak, it's stress, it's anxiety. And so we consume this alcohol, the body eating spirit, to create a temporary, but I would submit an illusionary sense of relief. But of course, the consequences of that temporary and illusionary sense of relief can be dire.
I am not entirely sober. I'd probably drink about once a month right now. But the last time I drank in a way that was, I feel like, really, really negative for me was in 2020. And I remember looking at I wear an Aura ring now. I think I was wearing a Whoop at the time, but I was looking at my biometric tracking, and my sleep and my recovery were completely trashed for 2 days. I could not recover. My heart rate was elevated. My respiratory rate was elevated. My body temperature was elevated. My sleep was horrible. No deep sleep, no REM sleep. And I just felt exhausted. And at that point, I really thought like alcohol is extremely expensive. You can spend, you can spend $150 at the bar easily, but beyond that, it's expensive energetically. It's expensive in terms of our recovery. And especially with what I do is trying to help, get 1% better and improve ourselves on a daily basis. It just there doesn't seem to be any sort of value there at all. Can you talk a little bit about some of the other negative side effects of alcohol as a poison?
Yes, let's talk about it as it relates initially to sleep. Okay.
Mhm.
So when we drink alcohol anywhere close to bedtime, we are essentially clocking in for a night's work. That's essentially what we're doing, right? Because most people, I would submit, have a couple of beers, have some wines, have a vodka, relax at the end of the day, right? And they're drinking that, let's say, anywhere between 6 and 10 p.m. Let's say the average person goes to sleep somewhere between 10 and 11. Now, when you do that, what actually happens is that the liver now has to go to work to get rid of the toxins that you just digested. But we don't want our body working throughout the night. We want our body resting throughout the night. So just like those old factory workers would clock in for a day's shift and then clock out at the end, When you drink that poison at the end of the night, you're just clocking in for a night's work. Now, for the fitness motivated and the health motivated, and I know that's a big part of your life, Nate, and your listeners, why would you spend any time in the gym lifting weights, drinking supplements, taking supplements, getting sunlight, getting 10,000 steps a day, being focused on your nutrition, only to then, between 7 and 10, drink poison and then compromise all of that, the good work that you've done throughout the day? But that's what we do when we drink alcohol. That's what we do, because alcohol is a sleep destroyer. And Nate, you would probably know what the consequences are of not having great sleep. Well, now in the morning we wake up, we're tired, we're irritable. And so what do? We reach for a sugary snack to try and give us a little bit of a pick me up. We're irritable, we're stressed. Now we have a little bit of lack of self-confidence. We drink a sugary drink, we have a little sugar spike, and now our glucose spikes, and then we have a crash, and then we feel like crap, and then we're kind of trying to get some carb-laden foods again to give us some more energy. And then we get to the end of the day and we're exhausted because we've had these glucose spikes throughout the day because we didn't have a great night's sleep. And so what do we want to do? Oh, we just want to numb ourselves with our body-eating spirit, alcohol, from the Arabic word. And the vicious cycle continues. So that's one thing. Like alcohol actually destroys your sleep. In fact, you'd be better off drinking alcohol for breakfast than you would be anywhere close to bedtime. Because at least then, if you drank alcohol for breakfast, you'd have 16 hours at least to get the toxins out of your body in preparation for a night's sleep. But when we drink so close to bedtime, it's just poison, absolute poison to our sleep. A couple of other quick little things to it takes 7 to 10 days in most cases for the body to rid itself of all the toxins from alcohol. So a drink
7 to 10 days.
7 to
Wow.
10 days. In fact, they've actually pulled out strands of hair from people's head. Obviously not mine because I'm a bald-headed man, and they put this hair under the microscope, and they can look at the strand of hair in the microscope and tell whether you drank alcohol 7 days prior to that, which is extraordinary, just because of the toxin levels that show up in a hair strand. Alcohol raises the risk of breast cancer in women. It lowers testosterone in men. It kills your brain cells, restricts brain growth, leads to a leaky gut, causes you to gain weight. The list goes on. It gives you a fatty liver, underperforming kidneys, increases your blood pressure. There was a study that came out of the UK in March of 2022 that showed that even moderate drinking is associated with reductions in brain volume, okay, with 2 drinks a day equating to essentially aging 2 years. So, if this is nasty stuff, but yet we're all walking around as if it's just normal and, succumbing to the smiling assassins in our lives.
I've always heard that, even one drink you have will eliminate all body fat reduction and all muscle building for an hour. And I think that's actually a little bit low. So but I think it takes a while to process that out. But Justin Nault was saying when he came on the podcast, one drink, about an hour of diminished body fat reduction or burnt fat burning and muscle building. So you're having 6 drinks, you're 6 hours out from being able to burn any fat because all that your body is doing is processing out that toxin. Meanwhile, everything you're eating, all of the carbs from the pina colada or those nachos you had because you were hungry, are getting stored straight into belly fat. Because that's the easiest place for your body to put those while it deals with the toxicity levels. So we don't do any metabolizing. We don't do any sort of waste reduction where our body 100% goes into poison reduction mode. And I think that keeping that in mind is also can be incredibly eye-opening when you start thinking about the cost associated with having just 2 drinks.
And even if you are only going to have 2 drinks, as if it's only 2 drinks, so therefore it gets a pass. But even if we gave that a pass, right, and said, okay, it's only 2 drinks, what the drinks leads to is increased appetite. And specifically increased appetite for sugary, carb-laden foods. Because your body turns that alcohol into sugar, and now it leaves you wanting to desire more sugar. And so if you're at a restaurant, you walk in going, don't drink, I shouldn't drink, I can't drink. Then you go, all right, I'll just have one. And then you're saying to yourself, don't have the dessert, don't have the dessert, don't have the dessert. And then the smiling assassin comes over and says, can I get you some dessert? Well, because you've got that drink or 2 in you, you're more likely to say, okay, all right, yeah, we'll have the dessert. And so now you're eating unwanted calories Now you've stayed up a little bit later. Now you're going to sleep, not only with the body having to get rid of the toxins from the alcohol, but now you got all these unwanted carbs and calories in your system, which makes it incredibly difficult for you to burn that fat in the night, because your body does do it, right? When it's in rest phase and restorative phase, it's like it's repairing. But instead, you're now making it work. You're making it like go to work on something that it wasn't expecting to do.
And like to your point, even about the sleep, if you lose 1 hour of sleep a night, it takes you 4 days to recover from that. And then every single subsequent day, people who lose an hour of sleep will eat on average 340 extra calories, mostly from sugar because they're looking for that quick boost, like you mentioned earlier. So like because like most of what I do is fat loss. I'm trying to help people get leaner and live longer. My two big things. So when you're adding this just additional, you're just like starting to play the game on hard mode versus working with your body, going to sleep on time, getting that deep restorative rest. Now you've just put so many more roadblocks in your way that keep you from having that success that you're looking for with your fitness levels.
Yes. I mean, look, alcohol is a drug, not a food group.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that.
Yeah. And also, the worst lies are the lies that we tell ourselves. Just one won't hurt. A couple of drinks, it's fine. It's not like I'm an alcoholic. 1 or 2 drinks here won't hurt. Well, don't be so sure. If you lose 1 hour sleep, you said folks eat at 340 calories additional the next day. Is that right, Nate?
That's right.
Okay, so let's look at that. 340 calories times 7. What are we looking at? We're looking at 2,200 additional calories per week. What's that? That's another 88,000 calories per month. That's another 120,000 calories over the course of a year.
About 36 pounds of fat you have to lose in addition to the fat you already have to lose.
That ain't nothing, Nate.
Talk about extra work.
Extra work. I love the analogy there. Yeah, it's extra work. And look, if you want to glorify alcohol so much that you're willing to put in the extra work, God bless you. You do you. I'm not. I'm like, I don't want this in my life. I don't want to do that extra work. I want to work, like I want to work hard, but I want to feel good. I don't want to work harder than I need to.
I like when things are fast and easy. I'm not going to lie to you. I prefer getting my results quickly. That's my thing, though. I don't know. Might not be for everyone.
I'm with you, Nate. I'm with you.
So do you feel like, kind of what I've been noticing, and this might be just my group of friends that I'm associating with, but I'm seeing more and more people give up alcohol either completely or indefinitely. Do you feel like this next generation of high performers that we're seeing will drink less than past generations?
It's already happening. There is a tidal wave of cultural change taking place right now. More and more people are reducing alcohol, quitting alcohol. The most recent generation, what do we call them? Generation Y?
Gen
I
Z?
think?
Gen
Z. Gen Z. They've never drunk less. Like compared to other generations, they are drinking so much less than what their parents and grandparents drank. It's extraordinary. There are so many alcohol-free alternatives on the market now, like just a plethora, an explosion of companies offering alcohol-free drinks because there's such demand in the market right now. My prediction is that in 20 to 30 years, I think it'll take that long, might be quicker, might be longer, but let's call it 25 years from now, we as a society will look back on alcohol with the same level of disdain we presently do cigarettes.
You think we'll get those like warning labels on alcohol bottles sometime in the near future?
It's already begun. Ireland is just about to roll it out. They decided on this about a year ago, and the first iterations of that are about to start happening. The Surgeon General of the US 5 weeks ago in January of 2025 came out calling for cancer warnings to be put on alcohol bottles. Now, how long that takes to get rolled out, let's see, maybe 2027. But it's happening. It's happening. I mean, candidly, I used to be a cigarette smoker back in the 90s. Back in Australia, when I lived there in my early 20s, I was a cigarette smoker. And I remember I used to buy a packet of Benson and Hedges Extra Mild. It was a beautiful gold pack. And, I'm in 20, 21, 22. I'm smoking cigarettes. Around that time, around 23, 24, they started changing the packs. Like the law came in Australia that you had to show a picture of a lung cancer, a cancer-filled lung. And so that beautiful gold pack had to go, and it was replaced by this terrible festering lung with a warning sign like warning, smoking causes cancer. I remember when that happened. That's happening. Like that's going to happen towards the end of the 2020s. And certainly it'll be mainstream sometime in the 2030s. Because alcohol increasingly becomes linked to all kinds of different cancers now. I mean, it's extraordinary. There's no way around it. This whole ridiculous notion that came out in the 90s that a drink a day is good for your heart health has been debunked so many times, Nate. But it doesn't matter because people were just clinging. Please let me be able to have one or two. Oh, no, but hang on. Isn't a glass of wine a day good for your heart health? Well, no. Professor Tim Stockwell from the University of Victoria in 2023 did a study of 100 previously studied studies on alcohol involving 5 million participants. And his results showed that any and all studies that led to this assertion that a drink a day is good for your heart health were either skewed or biased. Let that sink in.
Shocking. A study with a bias? Who is it paid for by? We'll never know. So, James, if you're talking to someone and they're like, I don't really have a problem with alcohol. I just like it. I just, I don't need it. I have it for 3 or 4 times a week. What would you ask that person to ask themselves? What's a question that you would have them answer to help them, gain clarity on their own relationship with alcohol? Because a lot of people tell you it's not a problem for me. But then they have a very difficult time giving it up, especially, when their goals are lifestyle change, like better health, longevity, better relationships, that sort of thing, better energy, which are not conducive to drinking, but they struggle to give it up. What reflections would you have them do in order to determine what is my relationship with alcohol and am I dependent on it?
In order to know where we're going, we've got to know where we are. So I would suggest getting clear and honest with ourselves and break it up into 4 segments: health, wealth, love, and happiness. With health, I would ask myself the question, sorry, Nate, how many drinks was this person having in this hypothesis that you just put forward?
2-3 drinks a night. 2-3 drinks
great.
A couple times a night. A couple times a week. Yeah.
Okay. So how do these 2 or 3 drinks a week compromise my health? And get very clear on that. Is it affecting my sleep? If so, how much? How do I feel when I wake up the next morning after having a drink or 2 the night before? Do I feel irritable? If I feel irritable, what are the consequences of that? Do I snap at my wife or my children? Or am I annoyed throughout the day? Am I tired? Do I want to sleep in? Okay, so that's a question of identifying where we are around health. In regards to wealth, let's just say that you're a business owner. You have an entrepreneur listener right now, and the entrepreneur is making, let's say, $1 million a year in revenue in their business, okay? The question I'd be asking myself is, with my drinking habits the way they are currently, how do I feel about how productive and clear and focused I am? Now, when I ask that question of most entrepreneurs who drink, they tell me about a 6 out of 10. It's like a 5, a 6, or a 7. But let's just say a 6 out of 10. And I go, okay, so with you being a drinker, you feel like a 6 out of 10, and you make $1 million in revenue. Now, if you stopped drinking alcohol and you had clarity, focus, energy, and you were sleeping well, and now you felt like an 8 out of 10, and that led to you making better strategic choices in your business. You find a new revenue stream, you cut some costs, you fire the person you've been procrastinating on, you just got more energy, you make a couple of extra sales calls at the end of the day, which leads to some additional sales and revenue. How much more money do you think that you could make? And most of the clients say that they could have at least a 20% increase. Well, a 20% increase in $1 million a year revenue business is $200,000 of additional revenue. So then I say to them, so your drinking habits are costing you $200,000 a year. And then the penny drops. They go, oh, so those 2 or 3 drinks a night or a week that I'm having are costing me $200,000 a year in revenue that I don't generate. Wow. Now I've got a financial cost. Then when it comes to love, I said health, wealth, love, and happiness. With love, Look at your relationship with your husband, wife, or your kids, or your friends and your staff. How connected are you to your wife or your husband? Just give yourself a score on 1 to 10 with with the drinking habits that you've got. When you come home, do you drink the alcohol instead of connecting with your partner? Are you too tired in the morning from your drinking to be present with your kids? Are your kids screaming for your attention, but you're tired because you had those 2 or 3 drinks the night before? So what are the consequences on your love life, your relationships? And then finally, I asked about the happiness. How happy are you? What's your outlook on life? How do you feel about life when you wake up irritable and tired because you had a couple of drinks the night before? And most people will say, "Oh, it's probably like a 6.5, a 7, maybe a 7.5." Sometimes I hear people say it's a 4 or a 5. I'm like, okay, what could it be? If you had clarity, focus, and energy, and you slept well, and you took care of your nutrition, and you were present with your kids, what do you think it could be? Oh, it could be an 8.5. Okay, so your drinking habits are now costing you marital peace, uh, being a great role model for your children, being connected and present with your kids, being a great leader in your business, being nice to the barista at Starbucks when she takes too long to pour your coffee in the morning, blah, 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 blah. And so just doing that stock take, Nate, health, wealth, love, and happiness, I think people will find a lot of clarity in that.
I love that. That's a great exercise. So, kind of last question. I wanted to hear a little bit about your book, and then I was also curious if someone's listening is sober curious, but maybe not ready to quit completely. What is a challenge that you'd issue to them to test their relationship with alcohol?
Well, to answer your first question, the book is called Clear, the only neuroscience-based method for high achievers to finally break free from alcohol. Really excited about it. It's 10 years of research that I've put into this. And if you go to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/clear, then you'll be able to get some bonuses and get the book and lots of other cool things. Thank you very much for asking me about it, Nate. I appreciate that. In relation to the second question, could you just remind me what the second question was?
If someone who's listening is sober curious but not necessarily
Yes.
ready to quit completely, what's a
Yes.
challenge you would give them to help them test their own relationship with alcohol?
Thank you very much. Yeah. So I would invite you to do that 4-step process: health, wealth, love, and happiness. I'd invite you to write down and track just how many drinks you're having each week, and then multiply that by 4 to find out how many it is per month, and then multiply it by 12 to figure out how many drinks you're actually consuming. Then I would ask you to just ponder, what would life look like if you were alcohol free? Now, I don't mean sober. I noticed that you used the word sober before, Nate, just so you're clear, I don't say that I'm sober or I'm practicing sobriety or I'm in recovery or I'm in treatment or whatever. We don't use those terms at my organization, Alcohol Free Lifestyle. For us, it's alcohol free lifestyle. It's a style of life. We're choosing a style of life as opposed to saying no to alcohol. We're saying
Okay, we're
yes to
choosing
being alcohol
the
free.
lifestyle versus choosing to avoid something.
Correct.
It's not
So
like that. It's more of a positive reframe rather than like I can't. I'm avoiding sugar. No, I'm choosing to eat healthy whole foods. I love that.
So AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, has a reported 7% success rate when we judge success by people having at least a year of what they refer to as sobriety. 7%,
Wow.
which means a 93% failure rate. Before all of the AA disciples start coming at me and accusing me, as they often do, I love the fact that any methodology can support people, right? I love the fact that 7% of people have found success through AA. It's helped tens of millions of people, no question. However, it hasn't been effective for 93% of people who attempt it. And I don't know about you, Nate, but I don't want to be throwing myself into something that has a 7% success rate and 93% failure rate, right?
Fair.
The reason why I submit that it's a 93% failure rate is because we're sober. We need to stop. We're lamenting the past. We've got shame. We're going to talk about all the problems that we've created in our life and all the F-ups that we've had. And no, I've got to say no. And I'm powerless against this disease. And I've got to surrender to a higher power. And I got to do this 12 steps process. I call BS and all of that in terms of its effectiveness, right? What we do at Alcohol Free Lifestyle, and certainly what I presented in this book, is empowering and positive ways that you can choose an alcohol-free lifestyle, a lifestyle that is free of alcohol. You're not sober. You're not practicing sobriety. You're not in recovery. All of these words, this verbiage keeps us stuck, keeps us stuck in this identity that we're victims, that we're powerless. I submit, choose a fun lifestyle with joy, clarity, focus, energy. Get into like minded communities of other health conscious people where alcohol is not necessary for social interaction, and watch your life transform in the most beautiful way possible.
I'm so glad I said sober because I loved that rant just now. So, James, this has been a lot of fun, a lot of clarity, and you brought up some really great points that I've never even thought of before. Like having devoted my whole life to like the health and fitness space. So, really appreciate you bringing your wisdom here. This is a lot of fun. Anything you want to leave us with before you go today?
I've had a life with alcohol and a life without, and without is 100 times better. And I would invite you and your listeners just to ponder the place that alcohol is currently occupying in your life, in your mindset, and challenge the notion that stopping drinking alcohol will be painful and unpleasurable. And instead, ponder the notion that stopping drinking alcohol will be fun and create generational impact in your family, in your business, in your community for the better. And not from a position of like, oh, I'm dull and boring now and I can't have fun, but from a, oh my goodness, being alcohol free is the most fun and gives me the most pleasure and gives me the most joy and makes me the most money and gives me the best body and impacts the most people in my life.
Amen, brother. Thank you so much, James. This is a lot of fun.
Thank you, Nate. Thanks for having me.